Here we go. We're rolling. Episode number 552. No Laugh Track podcast here in Minneapolis, Minnesota at Acme Comedy Company. I am Justin Severson, each and every week hosting this podcast. I say this every time. I get real excited when I talk to a person for the first time, especially someone that I've heard of and known of for, I've been doing this podcast since 2011. I knew the name KP Anderson in 2011, and we're finally meeting today in 2024.
You have talked to 552 comics and you still retain your sanity?
Well, some have been many, many, many times.
Yeah.
So, but yes, 552 weeks of talking to comedians on a podcast.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. I told you before we went, but I have to say, I love this podcast. I love just because this is, my home club.
Yeah.
And even though I haven't been around, I kind of never went away. And I just love seeing if it's the comics coming through who I know from the other residences or some of my friends from back here. I think you do a great job with them, and I'm sure you will do the same with me, Justin.
Well, the pressure's on now. Like I told you, I'm going to do my best here, and I'm going to start off with, we're going to go way back here, sir.
Okay.
So, yes, you originally started in Minneapolis doing comedy.
Yep.
What club did you first step foot in doing comedy? It wasn't Acme.
No, it wasn't Acme. My first open mic, I was a junior at Hamline University, and I was in a communications class. I was a communications major, but I was in a public speaking class.
Sure.
And my professor, a guy named Dave Lepaco, told me after I gave a speech about Alexander Hamilton, he said, "You're an interesting character study because you are a really good public speaker." He goes, "You're really funny. They like that, but you clearly do absolutely no research and don't give one shit about anything that you're saying." He said if it's factual or not. And he said, and he was like, "Here's the deal I'm going to make with you." He goes, "You have the skill set that you need to pass this class, but," he's like, "you've just effed off every single speech you give." And he said, "So if you go to the open mic night," he handed me the Twin Cities Reader, and he said, "If you go to the open mic night at the Comedy Gallery Uptown and you come back with some sign saying that you did 5 minutes of stand-up, then you will, I'll pass you in the class." And I was kind of leaning that way anyways. I'd been, I've told the story a couple of times this week, but Louis Anderson was, seeing him growing up in Cambridge, Minnesota, seeing him on his PBS special was the first time that I kind of looked at it, and I was, 13, 14 years old and went, I think I could do that.
Yeah. And
so that was sort of my, not because I thought I was as funny as Louis at the time, but because something just spoke to me about the medium. And
he was from here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
one of us from here. Yeah. Like I've said this also, but it was funny because the other one was Prince, and and my friends would play Prince albums and go, "He's from Minnesota," and I'd be like, "I can't do that."
So, how about Lonnie Anderson?
Yeah, Lonnie Anderson.
Minnesota?
Yep. WKRP in Cincinnati. I couldn't
do that either.
I could have pulled off a pretty solid Lonnie Anderson drag, I think.
See, there
back
you go.
in the day, I was a cute kid.
See, there was something there.
Yeah.
There was something there. So it was one of Scott Hansen's places.
Yep. It was. They had the place in Uptown. It was in Williams Pub. Is Williams Pub still there?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, it was a little.
I don't spend much time in Uptown anymore,
it
but
was
yeah.
It was a little adjunct room off of Williams Pub, and then that led to Scott was actually there the night that I did it the first time, and that was a crazy night. Maria Bamford was starting that night. John DeBoer was starting that night. It was a crazy fun night. But Scott actually said, I've got this room out in Maplewood, Minnesota. That was in a Days Inn, and it runs on the weekends. And he said, I'll pay you like $65 a weekend to be the house MC there. And so that was, I went from that open mic to getting regular, stage time. But this great Minneapolis comic, Sid Youngers, was the headliner the first week at.
Okay, I know that name.
And Sid, after my first show at Maplewood, I got off stage and I went and sat next to him at the bar while the feature act was on, and Sid just says, "How long you been doing it?" And I said, "This is my second time." And he goes, "Oh, I thought you just sucked." Which was fair. It was totally fair.
I guess a veteran has the right to say something like that.
Cut to me hiring Sid as a writer on Norm Macdonald Has a Show. Who sucks now? No.
Did that really happen?
Yeah.
How soon into that job interview did you bring that up to him?
Right away. And actually, I didn't really interview him. Norm told me I was hiring him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Norm had his guys, and Sid was squarely a Norm guy.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. I want to go back a couple steps to before you got to St. Paul at Hamline University and growing up in Cambridge, Minnesota.
Yes.
Where did you hang out in Cambridge? At the Chinese restaurant? At the Hardee's? At the A&W?
I worked at the Hardee's.
Or the Ben Franklin?
Yeah, and the A&W early turned into Fuzz and Dumpy's restaurant. But yeah, I worked at the Hardee's.
You did?
Yes. Yep. I was like a morning shift breakfast guy there when I was in high school for a while. Yep. Are you from that neck of the woods? Or?
My dad went to Cambridge High School.
Oh, really?
Yes, he did,
No
sir.
kidding. Did we graduate together? Or?
He's older. No, he's
Yeah.
in his 70s, so he's
Okay.
he's significantly older. No, but that's where we used to go there. Highway 65
Yep.
is basically the only way to get there.
Yeah.
And it was like, which grandparents are we going to see this weekend? The one that's 1 hour away or the one that's 2 hours away?
Exactly, yeah.
And they were the 1 hour away.
Yeah, and it's really weird what, like, the town has all moved like 400 feet to the, like they did a 30 Highway 35 bypass.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, all life is out away from that center of town. Like, I had a paper out there. Every morning my grandpa and I would stop after I got done delivering the papers. We'd meet up for breakfast at People's Cafe. Like, it was
People's Cafe.
You're
You're blowing my mind. I haven't heard that in
Yeah.
40 years probably.
Yeah.
Wow. There was a Chinese restaurant that we would always go to.
Yeah.
That was right downtown.
Yeah.
That might have been called People's. Was it called People's?
No, it wasn't People's, but that would be really on the nose for a Chinese restaurant, I think. The People's Restaurant.
People's Republic
Yeah.
of Restaurants.
Yeah.
That was the place where I first, we were there at a family meal, and another family came and sat down at a table, and then my grandmother pointed out the darkies that had walked into the building.
Nice.
And I was
Nice.
like, I didn't know what? No.
What, Grandma? No.
No, don't ever say that again.
It's really weird when you find out how racist your older relatives are. Like,
Man.
yeah. It's
I'll
a
never
thing.
forget it.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it.
It's a thing. I remember my dad has been gone for 15 years now, 20 years, something like that, and I lose track. But when I first started dating my wife, who's Jewish, I went home to Minneapolis for a visit something or another, and I was sitting in their TV room when he came home from work, and he goes, so your mom tells me you're seeing someone then, and I said, yeah. He goes, what's her name? I said, Leslie. He goes, last name. Because that's the.
Yep.
And I said, Deutsch. He goes, oh, German. And I said, Jewish, actually. He goes, oh. And he walks out of the room, and I hear some ice cubes hitting the glass. And I hear ice cubes hitting the glass a little later on. He comes walking back, and he goes, I always liked the Jews. Good customers. Your friend Josh Weinstein, his mom's a Jew.
Oh, my God.
I was like, God bless you, Dad. You went through that whole Rolodex of hate, and you didn't come up with anything on the Jews. Nice job, old man.
So how many drinks did it take for him to come up with something positive?
Two. Oh, he loved her, though. Once he got to meet her, my dad was just like, it was interesting because he was the very definition of that, like, you don't know until you know, and just whatever's fed into you. Like,
Sure. Oh, yeah.
By the time I started writing on shows, my first writing job was for Keenan Ivory Wayans on a late night talk show that he had, and at the same time, my dad had retired. He was a salesman for the Minneapolis Star Tribune.
Okay.
And he had retired and had taken a job over the holidays throwing packages on like a third shift at the post office. And so one night he calls me. And he goes, you're working for that Keenan guy, right? And I go, yeah. And he goes, man, black guys are funny. I was like, well, I'm guessing not all, but yes, they're capable, Dad. Like, he made some friends, and suddenly the aperture opened a little bit more,
Is that your URL available? Black guys are funny?
Yeah.
There's a lot of content that could go there.
Yeah, absolutely.
My goodness. Oh, my goodness. I got to go back one second. That I love the fact that you worked at that Hardee's, because one of my huge I grew up in St. Paul.
Okay.
So when we would travel to visit Grandpa and Grandma in Cambridge, and if we weren't eating there, we're going to go out to have a Chinese restaurant, or of course, what I wanted as a kid was fast food. Mm-hmm. And there were no choices out there. It blew my mind as someone who grew up in the city.
When that Hardee's came, it was a big deal. It was a huge deal because also like
We
the
went there
Hardee's,
so often.
yeah, well, and in high school, the Hardee's parking lot is where the kids went to hang out, and it was, and it was it was like 3 blocks away from the American Legion, which was really the only functioning bar,
Yeah, okay.
which is where all the adults hung out. So everybody was fucked up, but discretion was the better part of valor, where it was like, we stay on these blocks, you stay on those blocks, we all get home around the same time, nobody asks any questions. Was kind of how it worked there.
Oh, it's so great.
Yeah.
It's so great. And now you drive through, and it's so different.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's so different.
It's really weird. You go through that downtown. And I was there like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
You were?
With my brother playing some golf up there, and
Cool.
I drove through the downtown, and I was just like, when we left, did we take the last can of paint, or what's going on here? Like it just looks like
Beige.
yeah, but there's been. To my understanding, there's been great efforts to kind of revitalize that downtown, and I hope it takes at some point because, it's where I grew up. That little strip, the Leader department store, and all the Ben Franklin and all that stuff were, we're so much like that's what that's what I think growing up is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
And now you live in Connecticut.
Now I live in Connecticut.
And before that was Los Angeles.
Los Angeles for a long, long time. Yeah.
Anywhere else in between there?
Nope.
Nope,
Nope.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I looked up. So I was at the show last night. I guess I haven't said that on the show yet today. Excellent show. We had
thank you.
4 contestants last night
Yeah.
from various degrees of talent. 2 were really good.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't be surprised if I see later down the
Yeah.
line.
Only by a margin I disagree with the result. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, I thought
Same.
the African American gentleman.
I don't remember his name. But
I'm not going to get it wrong.
Yeah.
But I thought he went on a tear for like when you only have 3 minutes. I thought he really threw it down.
yep, it was good.
Yeah,
It was really good.
But the kid who won was great too.
Yeah, no, I liked his stuff as well. Really fun show last night. You mentioned on stage that you now live in Connecticut. I looked up. I just did a Google search of Greenwich, Connecticut.
Yes.
And I'm interested in moving there. There's a house for sale that's $47 million.
Yeah, we put an offer on that. We offered $350K all cash, and they just passed, which was rude. They could have countered. Yeah,
I looked that up today. There really is a house for $47 million for sale,
Yeah.
and I rubbed my eyes like it counted.
Yeah.
That's million.
Yeah.
Million.
It's a really interesting. Greenwich is. We rent a townhouse by the freeway. So just I've done okay in my life, but I'm not 47 million okay. And we had a big house in California that we kind of were anxious to downsize out of after my kid took off.
Sure.
But yeah, it is a crazy, crazy, crazy wealthy place.
Yeah.
And my wife and I literally, I have a bit about it on stage, but my wife and I literally have this sort of anxiety that because I talk to so many people and I just kind of get going when I get into a room that I'm gonna make friends with a too wealthy family and then be on the hook to be able to hang at their level with them.
Yeah.
Which we absolutely cannot.
How big is your boat?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I have a friend who lives in Stamford who has a boat, and I'm like, it's the greatest as a Minnesotan. You learn early and often that, if possible, to be on a boat frequently without making any payments on it or its upkeep, you have won life. And so my buddy Mark is I am his first mate. I know how to wipe it down. I know how to clean everything up. I take good care of it. When I drive reasonably. I do everything to be just let me keep using the boat.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That is a good friend to have.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't have one of those right now. I'm in need. If anybody needs a first mate, I am available.
Can
I
I
don't
ask
have a ton
a
of
question
time.
from a camera angle? Am
Yeah.
I showing too much leg right now?
Brandon?
Okay, good. All right. All right, sweet. It is a fantastic. As far as 55-year-old urethras go, it is lickety split clean.
Were you asking about the under the desk camera?
Yeah.
I didn't even know you knew about that.
Yeah. I thought about this forever coming over because I realized everybody I know who's done this show has shown up in not show grubby. And I was so I gotta thankfully I've been in town. I was supposed to be here for 4 days. My mom had some health issues.
Yes.
I've been here for 17 days. I was supposed to go back to Connecticut after another gig and then come back. And
Wow.
and so I've been in Minneapolis for 17 days with 4 shirts.
You need to start paying taxes here. You're sort of a resident now.
Yeah, I know. Don't say that. I got away from LA taxes. Don't put me into Minnesota.
Yeah, no
taxes.
shit. no shit. Yeah, so I was at the show last night, and right when I turned around, I was walking out, you were already, because they were reading the results of the funniest person contest.
Yeah.
You were already in the back of the room with my pal John DeBoer, who you've already
Yes.
mentioned,
Yes.
another comedian, and doing a selfie with Fancy Ray.
Oh yeah, Fancy came down to say hi. I mean, that is like, speaking of the Comedy Gallery, Fancy Ray, Ken Bradley, Colleen Cruz, and he reminded me of who the other person was, but we did like a Young Guns kind of show all these years ago, and it's still one of my favorite pictures of four of us out by the St. Anthony Bridge. Oh, it was Josh. It was Josh Weinstein.
Okay,
actually.
yeah.
And it was, and it's such a great memory of like that man has done like more just cool, fun stuff in and for this town than anybody I've ever known.
Yeah.
And he's just like he first thing he said was like, Andrew Zimmern says hi, and I was like, of course you're friends, like of course you guys are pals, like he's just fancy.
Of course.
He's just fancy. I love him dearly.
Speaking of Prince, he's the closest thing we have.
Yep.
He's absolutely the closest thing we have. So I was talking to a buddy of mine.
Fancy could stand to be a little more pillsy. Okay. So, sorry.
I was talking to a friend of mine about doing the podcast with you this week, and I was reminding him of who you are, and I was like, oh, he was connected with The Soup. He was a showrunner, executive producer, whatever the title. I'm sure you're going to get it wrong. And then he's like, oh, he goes, when? And I said, with Joel McHale, and he goes, oh, the good years.
Well, I appreciate that he knows the chronology.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to tell him that.
Yeah, that's nice. That's
and then
nice.
he goes, well, does he also ever work with that prick John Oliver? And I go, first of all, I love John Oliver, so I
Yeah.
don't know why you're saying that to me. And second of all, wrong show.
Yeah. Although John is a good friend, and he is kind of a prick, but he is a good friend. But no, John actually, back like sort of when he was migrating from the Daily Show into the HBO thing, he would do a lot of guest spots on The Soup, like especially if we were in New York, he would
did.
he would pop on with
Well,
us.
then he does remember that correctly.
Yeah, and we wound up becoming, when like John was building out the HBO show, Joel and I happened to be in New York, and so we went out to dinner with him, and we kind of like, we had this long talk about theories behind hiring writers and all the other stuff, and I mean, I love the show. I totally get why some people just buck the other way from it. I just think I mean, he's a genius, like a true bona fide genius.
I mean, HBO or Max or whatever, they should know that that's the only reason I'm subscribing. Really, is for Last Week Tonight to watch that. It's so good.
That's fair.
It's so good.
Yep.
They got other stuff too, but that's definitely
that's
number.
Yep,
definitely
card.
number one.
Yeah.
So, how did you first get the job on The Soup, and tell people what your role was, which was very important.
I was the showrunner. I was the executive producer, head writer of the show.
Okay.
And by the way, could you call my wife and remind her who I am at any point in time? No, but
I'll send her my notes.
I don't think you live with a daytime Emmy winner, by what he's told me. No, so I was. I had been doing Last Comic Standing for NBC. I was supervising producer by the end of that run, and a gentleman by the name of Ted Harbert, who was at the time the president of E, had called me up. I had done work for him on a pilot for Jessica Simpson that he had produced in his time between running ABC and and
sign
E.
of the times there.
Yeah, and he just remembered liking working with me and stuff, and so he called me up and he said, hey, so I've got this guy. They had done like, I think 12 episodes of a show called the What the Awards, that was basically sort of like the germ of the idea for The Soup, and it was Joel with a silly Reynolds Wrap made trophy that he just had to hold the whole time, and they'd come up with a name for an award for some stupid aberrant behavior in reality television, and then they'd play the clip and Joel would tell a joke, and then he'd still have to hold the fucking award. And Ted was like, I've got this show. The guy is really talented. He goes, he's a massive pain in my ass. He said my executives give him a note, and he doesn't talk to them. He comes straight to my office, doesn't matter what. And because I played golf with him one time, and he's just like, he's really seriously a pain in the ass. And he goes, I'll make a deal with you. I'm gonna cancel that show in 10 weeks. We're changing the name to The Soup because it's really just an offshoot of Talk Soup.
Yeah.
And he said, you go in, you meet, and at the time was just for the head writer. I became showrunner like maybe 6 weeks later, but he said, you go in and you meet with him, and if you guys get along and you can keep him out of my office for 10 weeks, I'll give you your next job. And I was like, okay, cool. And then Joel and I met, and he hired me, or he was the one, he approved my hiring, whatever, simply because he tells me this literally every time we talk, simply because I was the only one who had actually watched any episodes of the other show. Like the rest of them just kind of came in and went, well, I don't know, what does it matter? We're going to do a new show. And
something to be said for that. Yeah.
And so we kind of we came up with a format. We, improved quietly because we were $65,000 an episode, and he couldn't figure out a reason to cancel us because anything they would have replaced us with would have cost more.
Yeah.
And about a year or so in, all of a sudden people started getting it, and we had 12-year run. Put my kid through private school. It was a good thing.
I was such a big fan of that show. I mean, it was part of my nightly viewing.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely was.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great to do it. It's the one show, on the resume that my wife and I talk about a lot, actually. It's the one show that and the reboot that we did on Netflix with Paul Feig were those episodes. I'm not a go rewatch what you made person. But The Soup has had this sort of mini new life on TikTok. It's not going viral all the time, but there's people out there who saved all the episodes on their DVRs and are posting them and are posting clips from it on TikTok. And whenever somebody sends me something, or whenever I see something, I'm always like, you know what? I really liked Friday night. We'd get back from dinner, do whatever we did, and I enjoyed watching the show I made. And that's not always the case.
That is perfect. I'm going to play something for you. I hope this works.
Good morning, everybody in the news this morning. Good morning.
Ann Curry. An all-time favorite.
Oh, my God.
Yep.
Oh, that was such a classic that you guys played over and over and
we
over.
We get that.
And
we
over.
still get a lot of Spaghetti Cat. We
Yes.
still get Dunkadoo balls. There's the Dunkadoo balls lady. Yeah.
Making fun of Ryan Seacrest.
Yes.
The take the sunglasses off CSI
Oh
thing.
God, yeah, those were that's now you're into the basement tapes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was such a good show. Yeah, I made myself a couple notes here. Spencer Pratt's creepy flesh-colored beard.
Dominic DeLeo Mancini coined that phrase.
And there always seemed to be something about Tyra Banks screaming.
Yeah,
There was a lot of Tyra.
Tyra was the only she hated us. And there was a backstory to that, too, that her executive producer, he and I worked together on the Wayne Brady show. And we didn't like each other when we worked at the Wayne Brady show. And he was a co-executive producer, and I think, was I a co-EP in that? No, I think a head writer, but they called it coordinating producer or something to get around Writers Guild stuff. And I guess we had worked together on Keenan's show, and he said I was rude to him then. And I'm like, maybe. I don't know. I was like a fresh comic off the road. I had no idea how any of this stuff works. So it's very likely that I probably, did some of the wrong things from time to time. But we just couldn't stand each other. And then Morty, our executive producer, got fired. John, the guy, got Morty's job. And then John ran myself and the entire writer's staff out. We won the Emmy that year, but we still got run out. And then Wayne went down. John got Tony Danza's show at the same time I got The Soup, and all the stuff that every time we introduced a clip about Tony Danza, I always wrote something like, Tony Danza seems like a really nice guy and a really capable entertainer. It's a shame that his producer keeps making him do stuff like this until John got fired. And,
Hilarious.
And so then John wound up on Tyra, and we set our eyes there, and we got a cease and desist letter from Tyra. And that's the one thing I will always give E credit for this. Their legal department literally wrote back, no.
Nice.
That was it. Just
nice.
No.
And then it just ended there?
Yep. She's saying it. She's doing it. We're covering it.
Yeah.
We're well within our legal rights to say what we want about it. Yeah.
I mean, and she was. And
And Tyra to this day just cannot stand Joel.
That's hilarious. Did you have a hand in helping Joel do stand-up? Because I'm going to tell you something. I remember when I had the radio job, we had Joel at a phone interview. I think it was promoting The Soup, probably. And I think I asked him, part of my job there, I was doing the phones then.
Yeah.
And I asked him off the air, do you do stand-up? Never.
Yeah.
2 years later, I saw him do a theater show downtown Minneapolis.
Yeah, and I opened for him in that at the State. Yeah.
Yes, I was like, I bet KP opened for that show.
We had,
okay.
we brought Danielle Fishel from The Dish out with us.
Yes!
We had a great time that weekend. That was a weird one, by the
Yes!
way. My daughter came with me.
I was there.
Yeah, and I was running the soup and EP on the dish, and my daughter came with me to come see her grandma and cousins and stuff, and she was really young at the time, and my wife didn't come, and so Danielle and my daughter and I flew back together, and then we're walking through LAX, both of us holding my daughter's hands, and all of a sudden, like, TMZ guys started taking pictures, and I was like, no, like, freaked out.
Topanga the stepmom?
Yeah. I was like, do not know we're friends, and this is not what it. Yeah.
Well.
But yeah. So Joel, when he started, I don't know, it was like 3-4 years into doing the show, into doing the soup. We were both repped at the same agency at the time, and the public appearance agents were the show was getting really popular, and the public appearance agents were, kind of pushing Joel to go out and tour it and go get out and make extra money on the name that he suddenly built for himself, and so we did a lot of stand up together. And I didn't write his stuff. He early on, he mostly just kind of like fought his way through sort of like repurposing jokes from the soup or Ryan Seacrest jokes and stuff like that, mixed with some stuff about his new family. And there was a night with the way we did it at first, it was called Joel McHale and Friends, and it was Joel, myself, and Chris Hardwick. And Chris hadn't yet Chris was doing web soup for us on G4, and Chris hadn't yet kind of turned that corner that at midnight and Talking Dead had reborn his career. Yep. And so Chris and I would take turns closing the show, and Joel would just MC. And then we were like, after about maybe 6 months of doing it, we were in San Francisco, and they had added a fourth show Sunday at like 3:00 in the afternoon, and every single show was like women in their 30s. And their moms sometimes. And so I was walking in past the line one day and looking, and I just kind of walked into the green room where Joel and Chris were, and I was like, you better fucking write a 45-minute act, because they are not here to see us. Like, you need to know this, idiot.
Yeah.
So,
these are the E people.
Yeah. And so then he really dug in, and then, the next probably like, by 2 years from then, we were touring and we were doing theaters. Like, we did Carnegie Hall, we played, and I say we because I got to open for him. It was all, on his thing. Yeah. But it was a really cool time, and watching him kind of like Joel is such a weirdly intelligent person for what an idiot he is, that he really he dug in and he found his own way with stand up and crafted something I think is pretty good. Yeah. I think sometimes he gets bagged on because he wasn't a stand up and he started doing stand up, and I just go, well, you can be a purist till the day is done, and it's not going to make any difference. He made more than you last year.
Check the stats, brah. Mm-hmm. Check the stats. So you said on stage last night that you got back into doing stand-up because of the writer's strike.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sort of, yes. My first time going, I'm going to do this on a more regular basis was still right towards the end of the pandemic, and the clubs were just opening up, and it was the day that Louis passed away, Anderson. And I had gotten a call that he had passed away, and I was heading home to my little place in Toluca Lake, and there was this comedy club called the Comedy Chateau right by there that I kept driving by and thinking, you know what, if I'm ever gonna, actually take this serious again, maybe there's a place that I can go and quietly fail before I figure out my way, and I went in and they put me on, and it went well. And I was like, oh, shit. Okay. So, yeah, Louis had always been sort of on my case to get back to it. And so I decided, might as well do it now. And then...
How long had it been?
Well, I'd never stopped. I at least until the pandemic, I at least did 5 to 10 spots a year somewhere. Like somebody would be headlining somewhere, and they'd ask me. I'd produced DL Hughley's show, and DL when I first got to LA, I was trying to make my way, and I couldn't get up at any of the big clubs. Like, it was DL and Chris Spencer and a couple of people from the black clubs who were like, this kid's funny. Let's get him up where we are.
Nice.
And so DL whenever he would do shows, he loved having Rich White KP was what he'd call me. He'd loved having me come up and see if I could knock it down with his crowd. And so I'd always kept a presence somewhere in it.
Okay.
But then once we moved is really when we moved east, and we were so close to New York City, and I always wanted to sort of know what it's like to be in that New York club scene, and so I started making myself a little bit more present there.
Okay.
And it's an interesting place too. It's they do not care what my resume says. It makes no difference.
It's what you're doing
funny
now.
or you're not
Yeah.
funny, and you'll get a shot. But then the comics will dictate. Like the comics will decide if he belongs with us or not. And so it's kind of like a weird, Second Life badge of honor that
Yeah.
I'm getting regular spots in New York now that I'm out, at least 2 or 3 times a week. I'm out doing stand up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I looked it up. So it's about 30 minutes, give or take, for you to get in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Depending on if I drive in, driving home is easy, 25 minutes because it's late at night and there's no traffic. Taking the train, it just depends. If you catch an express, it's about 45, and if you don't catch an express, it's about an hour.
So how about like the place everybody loves to perform in New York's like the Comedy Cellar? Have you
Yeah.
been in there yet?
Yes,
You
yeah,
have.
Yeah, Esty, who books the Cellar, is interesting. She does not pass you. You don't become a regular at the Cellar in any way, shape, or form. Like she goes, I'll give you spots, and we'll see how it goes. And so I'm getting spots,
You're
and I
getting
guess
spots.
we're seeing how it goes
Okay.
until me or Esty die. I don't know.
Did someone have to vouch for you to get your foot in the door there? Or
No, that part was easier because of the resume. That part was like, it's very interesting though. It's like my first stab at getting in anywhere. I
Okay.
was like, I don't want to, come in with my IMDb page and expect them to treat me like, because there's always this, because of the other side of my career, the show running and the producing and the developing stuff, and because all of it's in comedy with comedy, or with comedians rather, it's always a little bit of a dicey proposition of I don't want to go down there and hear pitches because I like to have a drink when I'm at comedy clubs, and I like to say yes when I've been drinking and make people happy. And so I don't want to go in and go, the soup, blah blah blah, this show, that show, all that stuff, because I feel like it's peacocking with, it's the old Hedberg line. It's we love how you cook. Can you farm? Sort of mentality of like, just because I know how to produce and just because I know how to work with these comics and I've got this resume of the comics that I've worked with, it does not mean by any stretch that I'm a good comic. So I got to prove it on my own merits. Mm-hmm. And I know that I'm a good comic, and I've known that for quite some time.
Sure.
But when you're not on the scene, and especially there's been such a massive revolution of what fame is and who's famous and who's,
Yep.
and so I really I take it very kind of personally. Like I got to go on stage, and last night I had fun, and it felt good to knock the rust off up here last night. But I don't want to have that show again tonight.
Okay.
I was wandering a little bit last
Sure.
night.
Okay. How about since you're back, in your home state, family, friends showing up this week? You got.
Yeah, there's a good contingent of some. I had my old roommate from Hamlin University here last night. There's some high school friends. I keep getting texts and stuff along the way. People are showing up. And then there's always 2 or 3 people who I had no idea were coming.
Sure.
And, yeah.
So there'll be an opportunity to have that drink with somebody after every show this week.
Yeah, exactly.
And
say
then some.
yes to them about something.
Yeah, for sure. What is there anything that you've worked on or written on that's yet to come out? Or
I just directed 2 weeks ago, and it's going to launch. It's going to launch on I think the 8th of June, a social media campaign for Starbucks that I'm not allowed to say anything more about.
Okay.
I'm currently working as sort of a executive / consultant with a new production company called the Pro Shop Studios. That's a gentleman, Chad Mumm, who created Full Swing for Netflix, the golf thing. He's put together this incredible company that raised a whole bunch of money, and the PGA Tour gave exclusive rights and access to their archives and to their footage moving forward, and to their courses and to their players. And so I'm working with Chad building out a slate of programming for that, and that's been a huge focus. But also, since the strike, I did a pilot for Comedy Central with Ken Jeong in January that just didn't get picked up when comedy picked up exactly 0 of the pilots that got made for them. Somehow, weirdly, right after the announcement that they were cutting $500 million in funding to the entirety of the Paramount Viacom entity, whatever the fuck that thing is. So yeah. So
entity.
I don't. Ken and I were like, should we be pissed about this? And we're like, probably not. Like, it'd be one thing. We thought it was good.
Yeah, probably destined. It was never going to happen
Yeah.
there. Sounds like. Huh?
Yeah, but yeah, it's been a weird, last year of post-strike. The business just hasn't gotten back yet. Like I was texting with my agent this morning, and we're hopeful. They just announced that IATSE, the below-the-line union, reached an agreement. They're not going to go on strike. So we hope that now the studios and networks will finally kind of open up the floodgates and start making new shows again.
Okay.
But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. In the meantime, you're going to keep going on the road. And...
I'm going to make a decision after this week as to what not like a might I retire kind of thing, but I'm going to try to make a decision after this week about I didn't book any dates after this week. A little bit of it was wanting to see what was going on with the business itself.
Okay.
And everybody kind of predicting that right around now would be the time where we'd start finding out. I don't want to put dates on a calendar that I might have to drop because something that pays way better came along.
Yeah.
So I'm hesitant to do that. And also, like, very truthfully, I'm really grateful that we've got good numbers looking like it for this week. It is, in order to sell seats in comedy, you have to be active on social media and you have to, cry out for attention. And I fucking hate that. Like, I think I've posted like 3 stand-up clips on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I spent like 2 hours trying to figure out how to fucking work this stupid home computer editor and do all this shit for it. And I put it out there, and and then it's like, oh, if you want people to actually see it, will you give Facebook $150? It just goes on and on. And
was not part of it when you started.
No,
that's for damn sure.
And like we used to just send our picture places and then blame someone else when no one showed up. Like, it was really easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I give my friends between podcasts and and being able to do that stuff, I give them a ton of credit. Like one of my best friends is Andrew Santino, he's brilliant comic.
Brandon's a big fan.
Yeah, he's
As am I.
Yeah, I love Santino to death, and I like how amazingly well he generates new material. He puts stuff out that is both his stand-up and his other stuff that just is funny.
Yeah.
He and Bobby do a crazy, amazing job with that stupid podcast. And
I'm Bobby Mother.
Yeah, and we went to see him. We went to see Port Chester, New York, is right next to Greenwich, where we live. And they came in last year for a thing at the Capitol Theater in Port Chester, which is a beautiful old theater. And then afterwards, and Port Chester is sort of like the negative of Greenwich. It's a very dive bar-y kind of town.
Yeah.
And so afterwards, we went out to like a super dive bar, and it was like 2:00 in the morning, and Santino and Bobby doesn't drink, and Santino and I are drinking, and we're sitting there, and we walk out to the parking lot to do that. We've had too many drinks, smoke a cigarette time now, and we get out there, and Bobby is making out with an age-appropriate woman, both of them wearing sweatpants. And that's when I went, I've had enough. I'm going home. I don't want to see this. And
I can picture it now.
Yeah, but I give Andrew so much credit for. There's plenty who do it too. Adam Ray, Brad Williams, my God, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Who basically don't break their persona, their character. They just focus on funny.
Yeah.
And they do it in so many different ways, and they're really good about it. They also have reached that point in their careers where they don't have to maintain and manage the output of all that stuff, but they figured out the path and they got there. And Tom Segura is another one I give mighty credit to, and I go, I might be a hair too old, but I also just don't have the patience for that. When I'm producing, I have the benefit of a whole bunch of people younger than me and better at their positions than I would be to work with. to like pull these things together.
Yeah.
And I go, man, like doing it on your own and then like sitting and waiting for a like, it's soul crushing.
It's a whole nother job.
Yeah. So that's really the larger part of the decision is like, should I invest in someone to put this stuff out there and really see if I can, I feel like my stuff, the younger audiences like me. I think that because of the empty nest thing, because of the, sort of lion and wintry kind of thing, that there's an audience out there
Oh, yeah.
who would love to have another person to go buy tickets to see, but they also aren't on TikTok, so you got to figure that out too. So it's a puzzle that
It took me years. I'm on TikTok now.
Yeah.
I see all the clips. But
I'm
yeah,
there.
no, I know.
Yeah, I'm there. I just don't do anything there.
I don't put anything on there either.
I never open it up in the morning. I go like sometimes I'll open Facebook at my age it's to see who's dead, but it's like I just go I don't know.
I was sitting in the basement this morning, in between prepping for the podcast. I got caught up scrolling TikTok, and I have a daughter that's 4.5 years old.
Aw.
Yeah, I have an 18, 16, 4.5.
Look at you.
KP. Yeah, and my 4.5-year-old comes downstairs. Daddy, what are you doing? And I said, stopping exactly what I'm doing right now because you just reminded me to go do something else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I literally thanked her. I'm like,
Yeah.
because you got my attention, you got me out of this because I would have kept going.
Yeah, you go down that hole,
Stupid.
and I get why it's so addicting. I just have no taste for being there.
No.
Like, God bless my daughter's not on TikTok. That makes me happier than anything in the world.
Oh.
Yeah.
She's a unicorn, apparently.
Yes, she is.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
This has been great. We've already filled the time.
Holy
so,
shit.
Yeah, I know it. So we're recording this on Thursday, so we're going to get this posted as soon as possible. There's 4 shows throughout the weekend to come see you.
Yeah.
And follow you on social media to see what might be happening or maybe
at
not.
IKP Anderson on Instagram and TikTok. And then there's a Facebook page with like 200 followers. It's sad.
It's all the cool kids are.
Yeah. The Facebook page was like I regret the Facebook page the most. I think just because it's like you have to call it a fan page.
Oh yeah.
I hate that word too.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Like
join my fan page.
yeah,
Join my fan page.
And then you get people who then start addressing everybody as their fans, and it's like just because you saw me. It's probably more likely since you saw me, you're not a fan of me. It's like
all the KP heads. Come on.
yeah, they're everywhere. Maybe I can get like Jimmy Buffett's old crowd. That'd be cool. They're not doing anything.
Probably, they're hanging out there looking for something to do.
You get some parrot heads in my show.
There we go. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. This was great. I really
you.
appreciate it.